A Bangladeshi student leader just threatened to cut India's seven sister states off from the mainland and hand them over to separatists. India shut down its visa center in Dhaka. The High Commissioner was summoned. Military garrisons are being positioned around the Siliguri Corridor. This is not a random political statement. This is a geopolitical alarm bell. So why is Bangladesh suddenly becoming a threat to India's most vulnerable region? How did this situation go from manageable to critical in just 4 months? And what happens if India loses control of its northeast? Let's break down what's really going on. On December 15th, 2025, at a rally in Dhaka, a 25-year-old student leader named Hasnat Abdullah stood up and made a shocking statement. He said, and I quote, "If Bangladesh is destabilized, the fire of resistance will spread beyond borders. We will give refuge to the separatists of the Seven Sisters too." He called them vultures, India essentially, and said if India sheltered forces that destabilize Bangladesh, then Bangladesh would retaliate by supporting Indian separatist groups. 2 days later, on December 17th, India summoned Bangladesh's High Commissioner. The Indian government conveyed one clear message. Extremist elements in Bangladesh have announced plans to create security situations around the Indian mission in Dhaka. The same day, India closed its visa application center. A visa center closure is not a small diplomatic move. It means India is treating the security threat as real and immediate. But here is where most people miss the actual story. The threat Abdullah made is not just political theater. It has teeth. It has historical precedent and it has a very specific target. The Seven Sisters are 7 northeastern states of India: Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland and Tripura. These are not random states. 4 of them, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura and Mizoram, share direct land borders with Bangladesh. They sit geographically at India's most vulnerable edge. And here is the critical part. They are connected to mainland India through one narrow corridor called Siliguri. This corridor is only 21 kilometers wide. It's called the Chicken's Neck. If you lose control of this corridor, you don't just lose the northeast. You essentially cut off a significant part of India's territory from the mainland. Now you might be thinking, Bangladesh is weak. How can they isolate the Seven Sisters? The answer is they can't do it militarily, but they don't need to. And this is where the story gets dark. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, separatist groups from India's northeast, Ulfa from Assam, NLFT from Tripura, various Naga groups, did not just operate in India. They had sanctuaries in Bangladesh, they had training camps, they had supply lines, they had safe houses. When Indian security forces moved in, they would slip back across the border into Bangladesh. Pakistan's ISI actively supported this network. Pakistani diplomats in Dhaka would meet with these insurgent leaders. They'd provide money, travel documents, weapons. This went on for 2 decades. Then, in 2009, Sheikh Hasina came to power in Bangladesh and she changed the game. Hasina was not just a pro-India politician. She was ruthless against separatists and terrorists. She shut down the camps. She arrested insurgent leaders. She cracked down on Islamic extremist groups. The result? The Northeast insurgency was effectively contained. From 2009 to 2024, for 15 years, these groups had nowhere to go. No sanctuary, no support network. India could actually manage the situation. But then, everything changed in August 2024. Mass student protests erupted in Bangladesh over quota reform. The protests exploded into a full anti-government uprising. Sheikh Hasina fled to India. A new interim government, led by Muhammad Yunus, took over. And within weeks, the new government made decisions that would send shockwaves through India's security establishment. First, they lifted the ban on Jamaat-e-Islami, Bangladesh's largest Islamist political party. This is a party that supported Pakistan during the 1971 Liberation War. This is a party with ideological and operational links to terrorist groups. By August 28, 2024, the ban was reversed. Second, the government started releasing prisoners. When the prisons were stormed during the chaos, about 700 inmates escaped. But more alarmingly, once the situation stabilized, the interim government started releasing them on bail. How many? We are talking about 144 militants belonging to terrorist groups like Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh, JMB, which conducted coordinated bombings at 300 locations in 2005. We are talking about Ansarullah Bangla team members, ABT, who are basically Al-Qaeda's franchise in Bangladesh. These are not random criminals. These are trained militants with specific skills. If this analysis is helping you see geopolitics differently, please do subscribe. Most channels won't tell you this. Let's continue. The third thing the interim government did was shift closer toward Pakistan. In November 2024, the government began intelligence sharing arrangements with Pakistan. Let that sink in. Pakistan's ISI, the same intelligence agency that has been trying to destabilize India's northeast for 50 years, now has an official channel to coordinate with Bangladesh's government. This is not speculation, this is documented, and it's a game changer. Think about what Pakistan and China are seeing right now. They are seeing a Bangladesh in chaos. They are seeing a government that's moving away from India and toward Pakistan. They are seeing Islamic extremist elements gaining influence. They are seeing nationalist sentiment against India reaching boiling point. For China, this is an opportunity to expand the Belt and Road Initiative deeper into South Asia. For Pakistan, this is an opportunity to do what it's always dreamed of: resurrect the network of Indian separatist groups operating out of Bangladesh. Now you might wonder, is this threat real or just rhetoric? Here's my assessment. The threat to cut off the Seven Sisters militarily, that's not real. Bangladesh does not have the military capacity to sever the Siliguri Corridor or launch a direct military offensive. That would be suicidal, given that India's defense budget is 17 times larger, and India has the world's fourth strongest military. But the threat to provide sanctuary training and support to separatist groups, that's absolutely real. That's historical. That happened before. And the conditions for it to happen again are forming right now. This is why India took concrete steps. The visa center closure was not just bureaucratic, it was operational. It was India saying, we are reducing our civilian footprint in Dhaka because we assess the security risk as acute. The summoning of the Bangladesh High Commissioner to India wasn't just diplomatic theatre, it was India serving formal notice. We are watching, we are monitoring, and if you allow terrorists to attack our diplomatic missions, there will be consequences. And the military garrisons being positioned around Siliguri Corridor, that's India saying we are physically hardening our most vulnerable point. But here is the real question. Can India actually stop this? Militarily, yes. India can defend the Siliguri Corridor. India can secure the northeast. But strategically, this is harder. Because if Bangladesh becomes a failed state, if Islamist extremists take control, if the government collapses, if there is civil war, then you have got a situation where even a government that wants to cooperate with India might not have the capacity to do so. The ungoverned space becomes ungovernable. Think about the cascade of problems this creates. First, separatist groups from the northeast resurface in Bangladesh with training camps and supply lines. Second, Pakistan's ISI coordinates with these groups. Third, international jihadist networks, Al-Qaeda, ISIS Bengal province, consolidate their operations. Fourth, you get recruitment pipelines that feed fighters into extremist networks both in South Asia and globally. Fifth, you get refugee flows into India as the situation destabilizes. Sixth, you get organized crime networks, drugs, arms trafficking, human trafficking operating out of an ungoverned Bangladesh. Seventh, China moves in and establishes strategic footholds. This isn't just a Northeast India problem anymore. This becomes a subcontinental security crisis. And this is where the real game begins now. India's response has to be multi-layered. Diplomatically, India has to make it clear to the interim government that shelter to separatists has consequences. Economically, India provides Bangladesh significant benefits through trade and transit, and those can be reduced. Militarily, India has to maintain readiness along the border and increase presence in the northeast. Operationally, India has to work with whatever elements in Bangladesh's government and military actually see the threat that unchecked Islamic extremism and ISI involvement poses to Bangladesh itself. But here is the brutal honesty. India can't control what happens in Bangladesh. India can only control how India responds. And right now, India is responding carefully. Not with military aggression, but with diplomatic firmness and operational preparation. The bigger story here is not about one student leader's inflammatory statement. It's about the balance of power in South Asia shifting. For 15 years, under Sheikh Hasina, India had strategic advantage in the region because it had a government partner in Dhaka. Now that partner is gone. The new government is moving toward Pakistan and China. Extremist elements are gaining influence, and India, for the first time in 15 years, has to manage the Northeast threat in a more hostile external environment. This is what strategic vulnerability looks like in the 21st century. It's not about armies marching across borders. It's about ungoverned spaces, terrorist networks, and proxy wars fought through separatist groups. So here is what I want you to think about. Do you believe India's current diplomatic strategy of firmness without escalation will be enough to contain this threat? Or do you think India will eventually be forced to take more aggressive measures, whether military positioning, economic pressure, or direct intervention in Bangladesh's internal politics? Comment your thoughts below, and if you like my content, don't forget to subscribe. It really motivates me to create even more for you. Jai Hind.